Okay, is everybody happy?
Yes.
Now that that truck's gone.
Not that happy. All right, welcome to putting your garden to bed for winter. So I don't usually like these camera things, so I'm a little more nervous than I should be. Usually I like that just one-on-one. So we'll try to maintain that, because that's basically how we do it. So we're going to talk about putting the garden to bed. We're going to talk about basically here in the garden, but if any of you have gardens at home, it's all going to apply. We're talking mostly about putting your garden to bed in small plots. So the things that you watch on YouTube and Instagram and Pinterest and all of that kind of stuff, I'm sure are all very reliable and all well worth it. But what you have to do is take some of those things that you learn on those channels and apply them to your own garden. So not everything works. So what we see a lot of is folks bringing in lists of things that I never even heard of, a lot of times, to purchase to put in their garden because they saw on Pinterest that if you do that, you'll have 40-pound tomatoes. And so that's not and those things don't necessarily apply to us. So what you need to do is figure out how to do within our garden. So basically this is going to be just a very, very simple way to do our gardens. First of all, what we need to do is completely clean up our garden. So let's just say that everything's all growing right now, so it's a little bit early. So we're going to have to wait until things start dying off more, or we just simply give up on our garden. The main thing to do is get rid of all of the duff and debris. And again, I know they say, well, no dig, leave all your weeds and that sort of thing, and then just plant in and among those weeds, like dandelions and crabgrass and that sort of thing. Well, we can't do that here because we're in a small garden. We don't want those weeds going to seed and seeding into the next door neighbor's garden, so we want to get all of those cleaned up. If you're into no dig and you don't want to rototill or you don't want to dig, take the opportunity to pull those weeds out, and that can be your cultivating. Or as Leo and I did to the garden next to us, had a lot of weeds. We just took the shovel, he took the shovel, poked it down in, pulled it back, and I pulled the weeds out, and we completely cleaned that garden out. And that's kind of the way you can do it. Should not have that many weeds anyway, but it's a great idea to use the shovel or whatever to get rid of that. The other thing is leaving roots in the ground. You don't want to leave things in the ground like anything in the nightshade family, like peppers and eggplant and tomatoes, especially in our small garden space, because those things can contaminate the ground and they can make it hard for a new growth in the spring again. So you want to get as much of that out of there as you can. So what you're going to do is take your rake and rake it all up and get rid of as much of that as you possibly can. You can't get every root. What I'm talking about is woody roots. So, things that are big like this, where you can get them pulled up and get them out of there, because they're not going to decompose in Arizona weather in that ground like they would maybe in Missouri, where they'll be gone in the spring. So the first thing you got to do, of course, is get the irrigation up. So you get your irrigation up and take care of your irrigation. A lot of folks have these flat hoses, and the manufacturing on those has kind of gone downhill over the last couple of years. Hoses that used to last us 4 years or now went to 2 years. Now they're lucky to make it 1 or 2 years, it seems like. So if you take them up, clean them out, what I would do is open up the end of those, put your hose at the other end and just turn it on full blast and blow it out. Get rid of all the calcium and everything out of there. And then if you see white on there, white buildup, then what you can do is just roll it up and throw it in a bucket of vinegar water, like maybe a couple of tablespoons in water, and or a couple of glugs, and then throw it down in there, let it set for a few minutes or maybe an hour or so, pull it out and then wash it all off real good, blow it out again, get rid of some of that vinegar off of there, and then put it up where it can dry, roll it up for winter time. So I'm not real sure, Carol, do we get rid of all of our irrigation in here for winter?
Yes.
People take
Yeah,
them home?
You don't wanna leave your irrigation in, because then it just gets impacted by the weather.
Okay,
Shortens its life.
okay. Yeah, so you can roll them up, take them home, put them in a nice dry place. Then once that irrigation's gone, then you're able to do your dig, you're able to rake, get rid of all of the debris and everything else. So now we're ready to start doing things for winter. So really the only thing that probably, actually you don't have to do anything. You can just rake it and just leave it fallow, just like it is. And here we have some rain, some snow in the wintertime, so your garden may dry out. So what I would recommend, and what I do with mine, is I just take mulch, which one of these, this is this mulch, or is this mulch here? Compost or mulch? Oh, okay. The compost and mulch, I can't see from up here. The compost and mulch, and I only brought a small bag because that's all I wanted to carry. So you can get mulch, you can get it bulk, you can get it back in the back of the garden. You can bring it up, that compost and mulch, and it should go over top of that garden like maybe an inch, 2 inches if you possibly can. So what that does is it gives you a layer on top of the ground which protects your garden underneath. And then when it comes spring, you're going to either be planting through that or digging it back into the ground. So it doesn't go to waste, it just sits on top of the ground. So mulch or manure can be used, or chicken manure, or all of them. You know, it doesn't really matter, as long as you're getting some kind of a layer on top of it, so that the sun will dry that layer out instead of your garden. Because the important thing for wintertime is soil activity. So you need all those little microbes and all the bacteria and all that kind of stuff working all winter long. I noticed last year my garden here, by the time I got here in the spring, it was so dry and had so much surface tension that the water just ran off. It wouldn't even go down. I did not put a layer on top of it last year, and that's probably why, because it just simply dried right out. So I had to bring bags of other organics. I think some of this stuff went on it, especially the chicken manure went on top of it. Dug it all in, and then that took care of the surface tension. Surface tension means that when you put the water on top, you know how you take the water one and you go like this, and then you kick it, and it still just dry as a bone, like right underneath it. That's called surface tension. And you get rid of that by having compost and mulch or manures or whatever in there. So the alternative, oh, here's bat guano too. Bat guano is also it also has microbes in it, and it has bacteria in it, but it would be terribly expensive to put an inch or two of that on top of there. So we mostly just use it as a fertilizer. The other ones are going to be cheaper and more economical for you to use. So
So Glenn, would you leave it on top, or would you dig it in?
you can do actually both. The idea is that if you were just to put it on top, then it would sit there all winter long. A lot of them, if it dries out, it may blow away. So if you mix it right in with the ground, then it's not going to blow away as easily. Ideally, you should have a 1 to 2 inch layer on top.
If you have a strawberry crop, do you put that on top of it?
No, we can talk about perennials a good time. So if you have perennials, strawberries, asparagus, garlic, all of those, then that's going to be a different story. This is talking about a fallow, absolutely nothing. So in those areas, you're going to cut those things back unless it's garlic. You want the garlic to go ahead and grow. But like asparagus is going to start turning brown. You want to cut it right down to the ground. Work a little bit of compost and mulch in and around it, or manure, especially if you have asparagus. Asparagus loves manure. So you'll put manure all in around it as a base. So actually, if you it's still best to have a layer. You can dig it in, but have a layer on top of it also, so that it perks down during the winter and it keeps the soil activity going. So
What about the strawberries? Strawberries.
Strawberries the same. So the strawberries, what you're gonna do with those is cut them right back, and then right down to the ground, or cut off, just leave a little bit where the crown is, and you can put mulch in and around it, but you don't want to get mulch, thick layer of mulch all the way on top of it, because that can rot them, especially if there's snow. Yeah.
And this going back to the watering part, I noticed, I'm brand new, I know nothing, but I noticed when I was walking around that there's different types of drip systems,
Yeah.
like flat hoses and then the drippy ones and whatever. Is there ones that you think are better than others?
No, I think they all work. It just depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're planting like carrots and beets and anything that you would put in rows, radishes, all that, the soaker hose is going to be the very, very best for that. So as long as you're putting those in, and then you're putting in individual things like cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, tomatoes, and that sort of thing, you might as well just use the flat hose. That would be, you could use that for everything then. If you're only going to plant like tomatoes, peppers, things that are individual plants, probably a drip system would be the very best way to go. It would save the water, and it would put the water only where you need the water.
Got it, makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so we're still putting mulch on top of the ground. So I think let's see. So basically, that is really all we actually need to do. Those things, like Carol says, dig it into the ground if that's what you want to do. Put a layer on top of the ground. The layer on top of the ground is actually going to help keep the moisture down in, even though we get kind of dry here. So the idea is, if it's on top of the ground, you can dig it in the spring, and that's when it's going to be the most valuable for the plant. Okay, so we'll talk about products. So when I brought these products along, because these are very simply solutions. So no matter what you read on or what you hear on all the media, the YouTube and Pinterest and all of that kind of stuff, they tell you if you just do this, you'll have these huge tomatoes, you'll have huge peppers, you'll become a millionaire in your backyard. These are all actually solutions, and I bring them along to kind of give you an idea why you would use these. So like gypsum is just an old standard, and if you've had blossom end rot, which is where the tomatoes get the little black spot on the bottom, then you need calcium. So you need various ways to get rid of, or to add to calcium to get rid of that blossom end rot. So gypsum is by far the cheapest way to go, and it is calcium. Then another calcium is crab meal, like this. So this crab meal, but this one has two advantages. Not only does it help put the calcium in the ground and get rid of blossom end rot, but it also is good if you think you have, or if you have root knot nematode in your tomatoes. And we have seen that in the garden here. So this one put on the ground will help antidote that. I don't think root knot nematode, I don't think there's anything that can totally get rid of it, but it will reduce the population and keep it from spreading, and maybe eventually get rid of it if you use enough of it. So
Do that this fall?
yes. So what you would do before you got your garden all cleaned out, you want to add calcium to it so it sits there all winter long and becomes ready to go in the spring. Before you put your mulch on top, you just take that crab meal or your gypsum and just spread it all over that garden as best you can. So it all should look nice and white. And then it doesn't have to be thick. You don't have to use that much because it is expensive. So just get it all over. Then you take your mulch and you go over top of it. If you want to dig it in, and it's not a bad idea, go ahead and rototill it or dig it in or scratch it in, and then put your mulch back on top of it. Then when you water, it'll take that right on down into the fill.
Is it okay to use eggshells? Does that work?
Eggshells are okay, but you have to think in terms of how is
This is all.
the ground going to use that? What's it gonna look like? And it should not look like eggshells
I mean,
to be used.
pulverized.
Yeah, so yeah, there's nothing wrong with eggshells. Yeah, yeah.
I have an answer. On the eggshells, what I do is I just take all my eggshells and put them in an electric skillet, take them outside and fry them until they start turning colors, and then I put them in with rice vinegar. And when it stops bubbling, I can't remember the exact ratio, but when it stops bubbling, look it up on the internet, you'll know your ratio of calcium, and then you can just apply that.
Sure. So, yes,
Do you use raw eggshells, or do you, I always heard you had to cook
You fry them
eggshells.
up till they
Well, I
start to
just, I
turn
mean,
color.
I hard boil eggs, and then I use the shell.
yeah, they would be better used, but, a lot of people just pulverize them, put them out in the garden, and then they break
But
down
cook
and
'em
become
first.
used. They cook first, right? But they don't have to be. You can just
Really?
pulverize them and put them in the garden. They're not used immediately, but the ground will do its thing with an eggshell. If the microbes and the bacteria will, he's looking for like instant, like if you want to put them in now, so they'll be available in the spring, you'll be able to cook them.
That's what I make this up.
So I think that like these right here have already been steam sterilized and they're all ready to go. So if you want to go through that process with other calciums, I suppose you could do your own bone, if you so desire. So, yeah. So anyway, so those, but you're only doing those things. These are solutions. You don't have to just run right out and say, well, I need crab meal or I need bone meal, whatever, unless you actually really do. Most of us put on with Glen's Magic, if any of you remember that, it's bone meal, blood meal, and potash, all mixed in together, and that gives you nitrogen, it gives you phosphorus, and it gives you potash, and there's enough bone meal in there that it should stop any kind of blossom end rot. You shouldn't have to use anything else, but sometimes you can have ground that gets depleted, and you have to put in some kind of bone, some kind of calcium.
Is there a plant you can plant over the winter that would do that too? Like a farmer does, puts in.
For calcium, I don't know. I know that did I bring alfalfa? I think, yeah, alfalfa meal, its basic thing is that it gives you vitamin K, and what it does is it makes the stem walls real, what's the word, hard or hard, yeah, there you go, I'm looking for the word. Again, those are solutions. So I know a lot of people in this garden all use pellets, just horse feed, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's real good. If you don't want to get a bag of pellets to put in, then there's just this kind of stuff that is a meal to put in there, and lots of people do it every year anyway. Not necessarily as a solution, but just as a compost, and then you're adding those minerals that you don't get in other things. So that would be our calcium solution. I brought along green sand. We almost don't need green sand here, but because we have granite soils, the water goes right straight through. If you don't have enough composted mulch or manures or whatever you're using in that garden, green sand will help hold the moisture. It has really good moisture holding qualities. And we sell almost none of these. Most people just don't have a problem. But I've had occasionally people come and say, well, the water just goes right straight down. I can't stop it. And so what you would do is add green sand in the fall, and that will sit there and work all winter long and be ready to go in the spring when it's time to plant again. So anyway, again, these are just simply solutions. Alfalfa meal, we talked a little bit about stem wall hardiness, and just general health of the plant is basically why we use alfalfa. And that's one reason why you see the plants in here with all that alfalfa meal is really, they're really doing well. They're usually good, strong strong plants. And so that's true. We talked a little bit about crab meal. Again, it's going to be just like this one. Has anybody detected root knot nematode in their gardens? I know there was one there. What root knot nematode is you have the root and it has a bunch of knots on it. So when you pull them up, you get ready to pull all your stuff up. If you pull it up and you have those little knots, first of all, we need to tell like Carol and the team here that you have it, so we can make sure that we isolate that. I think there's only been one case, and they're working on that garden now to get rid of it, because we don't want it spread through the whole entire thing. If you want to make sure you don't have it, and you're looking for a calcium product to use, I'd use the crab meal, and then that way you can be sure that you're not going to get it. So this one, I brought a small box because I didn't want to carry the big one. This one is azomite. Azomite is just nothing but rock dust. And this particular one, it doesn't show everything that it has in it, but it has 72 different minerals involved in this rock dust. And so when you put it on, you are replacing minerals that could possibly be depleted. Again, if you're not having any problem with your garden and your garden is beautiful, you don't need to buy azomite. But as we continue to do our gardens over and over and over again every single year, it is going to deplete. So it's not a bad idea to put it in the fall and let it perk all winter long to be ready to go in the spring. Some gardeners use this every single year in the fall, and that way they make sure that they have all those depleted minerals. And that, yes?
What about grubs? Can you address that?
Well, grubs is going to be a bug, and we are going to have, for this garden, we're going to have nematode night, the 27th?
Yes.
October the 27th, and I'll be coming down here with the nematodes, and it will be free. All you have to do is get here at 5 o'clock on the 27th, bring your 2-gallon sprinkling can, and I'll put the nematodes in there, and you go take care of your garden. It takes 2 times, is it 2 times? Yeah, 2 times to do the garden with your thing. It's going to be all free. And to my knowledge, I think we've just about gotten rid of the grubs. Has people seen grubs in there?
I did.
Yeah, there's
I didn't know what
Have
it
you?
was.
Couple or a lot?
Couple.
Yeah, so it's a plague when you can take the shovel and go down and there's tons of them. So if there's 1 or 2, we're not doing too bad. And we've been able to control them pretty good by that. Yeah.
Do you sell the nematodes
We
for
do.
our home gardens?
We do, yeah. The reason why we give it out free is because, well, first of all, we want to keep it controlled in here. But the only way we can sell them is in a batch that does 2,000 square feet. And it has to be refrigerated. So, it's like one of those things you have to use. So, I mean, if you have a 10 by 10 plot, you have 100 instead of 2,000, it's $26. It's expensive. So if that's not a problem for you, then you do it. Or we share with other gardeners. You just find other gardeners that want to share that. It would work. Yeah.
Again, 'cause I don't know, I'm sure my neighbors will tell me, but I don't know what my new plot had problems with before necessarily. So coming in kind of blind, what would you recommend?
What I would recommend you do is use your mulch, just use compost and mulcher from the bin in the back. Get that all taken care of for fall, all cleaned out, no matter what it had in it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any perennials in there, like asparagus or strawberries or any of those?
I don't know because my plot got switched, so I haven't seen it since.
Okay, so if you do, then you want to treat it like we talked about. But then don't do anything else. In the spring, come in and get ready to garden. You want to dig it up, put compost back in there again, get the compost that's on top mixed down in, and then get some of the components to Glen's Magic, which is bone meal, blood meal, and potash. And then there's also an all-purpose that goes with that. And then just when you plant, then put that all in and around each one of those plants, and you should be good. Then all you can do is watch for problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't recommend doing it like the crab meal or the alfalfa, just because I don't know?
If you wanted to do the crab meal, just in case, that would give you calcium, because
wouldn't
calcium can deplete. It was me personally, I wouldn't. I just put it to bed.
Nematodes, do you dig your garden up before you put that on?
No,
or-
it goes right on top of the ground. How we do nematodes is, you water the garden real good and get it soaking wet. Then you come get the nematodes and you put them on, and then you water it again, because water drives the nematodes down. Soon as they go down in, then they immediately start looking for bugs, mostly grubs.
Yeah.
But they'll also do hard shell, so things like potato bugs or any kind of a hard shell beetle that is trying to overwinter, it goes for them. That's what they feed on all winter.
About earthworm, do they predate?
Do not bother earthworm.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
So, oh yeah,
Yes, just to get back, so I don't forget about the root rot, you mentioned, you can tell you've got it by these, knobs, but how does it affect the plant itself, the vegetable that you're?
what it does is the root knot nematode shuts off any nutrients that the root is trying to put up into the top. So what it looks like is the top gets stunted, it can't grow.
Oh,
So this tomato will be this tall, and this one with root knot nematode will be a foot or two. You know, it just literally shuts it off. So if you have a stunted one, that's why it's always a good idea not to say, oh, I need to, I want to save this plant, I'm going to save the world, I'm going to save this plant, it can't go anywhere. Best thing is, when they're stunted, dig them up and see what you got. Because if you do, you can catch that stuff early and get that out of the ground. Any other questions? So, yeah.
Is there any need for mycorrhizae here?
Yes, there is. In all planting, that mycorrhiza is necessary. If you use Glen's magic, that the all-purpose has both ecto and endo mycorrhizas in it, and that's all.
Do they apply that in the bulk, or do they use that after the plant?
I couldn't hear you because that.
Can we apply that in the fall, or do we need to actually put it on the?
Put it on in the spring because it's living and it has a lifespan.
On your potash, that isn't like if I know someone that has that's not the same thing that.
It is. It very so that is potash. So what you do with if you're going to use your fireplace ash, don't use very much because it can be actually a poison. And poison as instead of being good.
Exactly.
So we'll talk about this last and then we'll have that. I think we're done. This one right here is actually potash at 22%. We sell another one at 60%. I like this one because it also has potash 22%, magnesium is 10%, and sulfur is 22%. And sulfur will washes out, the ground gets rid of certain bacteria, but not everything, and then it also brings the pH down.
How much sulfur was that?
22% sulfur, 22% potash, and it has magnesium. So you're covering a lot of bases with this guy. I'm not even sure how you pronounce that. Langburnite. Yeah, langburnite.
So is that for winter or spring?
This one you can put on now, either way.
And that has the same
Yeah.
stuff as his.
Yeah, because it's high and it's not dissolved or usable right away, so it has to perk in the ground all winter long.
Glenn, so for our gardens, how much would you need of those products? How much would that do?
Like one of these would more than cover your 150 square foot lot.
I got a question.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with it. Is that watering where you said when you kick into the dirt and it's wet this far down and then it's dry below that? What'd you say to do for that?
That one you mix compost and mulch with.
Like in the spring, you called your plot seizing up or, you know.
Yeah, it has surface tension.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just mix compost with that so that it then, what happens is as the compost decomposes, it becomes fine. and then it won't take water. So you mix the compost or mulch or manures or whatever with that, and it opens it back up again, so it'll take the water.
Do that now, in the spring?
In the
No,
spring.
In the spring.
How long is the bulk compost gonna be available out there?
I hope forever.
I mean, but sometimes you guys run out, right?
It's pretty rare we're running out now. During the pandemic, we had hard time sometimes getting it, but they're back in production
All
again.
right, cool.
And your langbronite,
Uh-huh.
is that the same as your potion, French potion?
Potash?
No, the lang.
The
Yeah.
last one you showed.
That
me.
langbronite? Langbronite?
Langbronite?
Is it the same as which now?
Your magic potion?
No, that one, oh no, that one, you can use this one for the potash, yes, in the magic, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're just adding one more component.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening.